Since 1948, more than 3 million Jews have come to live in Israel. According to tradition, they're descendants of a people who lived here 3,000 years ago. Their ancestors, the Israelites, included the great patriarchs of the Bible, Abraham and Moses. History dealt harshly with the people of Israel. Over centuries, they were scattered to the four corners of the earth. Many simply vanished. They became known as the Lost Tribes. The mystery of what happened to the lost tribes of Israel has haunted the human imagination ever since. Thousands of miles from Israel, in southern Africa, live the Lemba people. They believe that they are a lost tribe.
The Lemba are Jews. We are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the rest of them all. Those are our blood relatives.
Their lives, for the most part, are traditionally African. But the Lemba have customs which could connect them with the Jews. They follow the strict dietary rules laid down by Moses. They eat only kosher food. All blood has to be drained from animals before they're fit to eat.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Tudor Parfitt is an anthropologist and linguist who has investigated lost Jewish tribes all over the world. Many diverse peoples, from Jerusalem to Japan, claim to be descended from the ancient Israelites. In most cases, it's a need to belong rather than reality. But after many years spent recording the Lemba's oral history and customs, Tudor has begun to share their extraordinary belief.
You're called the Black Jews. Do you really think you are Black Jews?
I believe that I'm a Black Jew because we don't eat pork, and the Jews also doesn't eat pork. There was this marriage, so we didn't have intermarriage to marry a different nationality. It must be of a Lemba tribe. And whenever we slaughter, we wash our hands, we clean our utensils. As what the Jews do, doing kosher food, they clean all the utensils, they clean their hands and so on. And that means everything is clean.
In modern-day Soweto, the Lemba are determined to preserve their Jewish identity. Their leaders remind them that Africa was not their original homeland. They tell of a journey across the sea from a place somewhere in the north, called Senna.
We started from Senna 1.
Senna 2.
Then we get to Senna 2. Senna 3.
Today, no Lemba knows exactly where Senna is, or was. In spite of their passionate belief that they're Jews, Tudor has had no means to prove or disprove their claims, until now. University College, London. In the Laboratory for Genetic Anthropology, a team based here and at Oxford University has developed a remarkable new way of exploring human history using genes. Because we inherit our genes from our ancestors, every human cell contains a record of human history. Now, modern science has begun to read the history book in our genes. The geneticists, led by Neil Bradman, were not interested in the Lemba to begin with. They wanted to test an ancient Jewish tradition that men with names like Cohen or Kahan were the direct descendants of priests who served in the temple in Jerusalem 3,000 years ago. These men are called the Kohanim. Genetics has a powerful tool when it comes to male ancestry, the Y chromosome. It is carried only by men.
The status of being a priest is inherited from father to son. So your father passes on to you the status of being a priest. Now, since the Y chromosome determines maleness, if you're a male, it's because you got your father's Y chromosome. So the Y chromosome is in fact inherited in exactly the way that the status of being a priest is inherited.
Science proved that the tradition was not a myth. Modern Cohen males have a unique biological signature, a genetic marker that must have been passed from father to son for 3,000 years.
What we were able to see really very clearly in analysing the markers was that as a population study, which means that we're not saying anything about any particular individual, whether they're an inherited priest or a lay Jew, is that as a population we were able to differentiate the Kohanim, the priests, from the non-priests. And this was consistent with the maintenance of a hereditary priesthood over a considerable period of time.
So far it looks like it might be an indicator of a connection to the ancestral Jewish population, and if that holds up, it means that we can test the origin of particular groups that seem potentially to have a connection to an ancestral Jewish population.
Tudor realized that the discovery had stunning implications for his own work with the Lemba. For the first time, their claims could be tested by science. If these black Africans possess the same genetic marker as the Kohanim, he will have discovered a lost tribe in a most unlikely part of the world.
As far as we know, there simply was no Jewish penetration into Africa, into black Africa. If we can show that this was the case, it really will be opening a new chapter in Jewish and world history.
Tudor will trace the Lemba trail northwards, armed with a genetic sampling kit from the lab. He will try to discover the lost city of Senna, and by taking samples as he travels, may solve the puzzle of who the Lemba are and where they came from.
We're in what used to be called the Northern Transvaal, and I'm trying to find a little village called Sintamuli, and it's supposed to be down this road. I've been travelling down here for some time, and it doesn't seem to be here, but I suppose, given that there's a road, it must go somewhere. And, well, it's all rather worrying. I'm going to Sintamuli because a certain William Masala lives there. He's something of an authority on the Lemba, and I'm hoping to get some clues really from William as to the genuineness of the claim that they're Jews on the one hand, and as to this mysterious place Senna, which they talked about a bit in Soweto. But it looks very much as if this is his village. So I have to turn right at this tree. Needless to say, there are no street signs here. So it puts out the wrong tree. This is the house. This is it.
These are the children of the province that went up out of the captivity of those that had been carried away. The children of Senna, 3,930.
Now you talk about Senna.
Yes.
Where is Senna?
This book tells us that Senna is in Jericho.
So you're talking about the Jericho. In fact, now it's in Palestine. It's part of the Palestine Authority.
Yes, Jericho, near Jerusalem. I don't know.
I think that's where Mr. Arafat is
yes, and
based.
Now, and that's you are telling me new about the Arafat. I was speaking that Jericho belongs to Jerusalem for Israel.
I was very moved by William. He was clearly very convinced by his story, and he's genuine in his belief that he's Jewish and his people are of Jewish extraction. And it's interesting. He keeps talking about this Senna myth, this Senna legend, the story of the Lemba. But it's still quite unclear where it is or what it is. He's situated it in ancient Israel, in Jericho, and it's difficult to see how he can know that. I'm not convinced by this biblical evidence.
The leader of the Lemba tribe in South Africa is Professor M.E.R. Mativa. He is official custodian of Lemba traditions and secrets, so it's vital that Tudor has his cooperation.
This is extraordinary. What's it about?
It's what they teach their children not to forget. It's a sad reminder that when they lose their customs and everything, they will not be people at all. And therefore, if they live among strangers, they must never forget who they are. Then he says, my grandchildren, stick to what I'm telling you. You see here, that's where we come from. That's where our ruins are. Come nearer. You see the graveyard. There lies your grandfather, who begot me, your father. So don't cry. Let's kneel down.
So what are they saying, really? Are they saying that they're sad because they don't know where their forefathers came from? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
And that they came from outside Africa?
Yeah.
And they're looking for their roots?
They are looking for the roots.
That's what it is?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. And so really they're looking back to Senna? Where
yeah, they are looking back to Senna. They don't know where it is, but they are looking for it. That's why he's talking to the ancestor here, to show them the way to Senna. I'm handing over these grandchildren to you so that you let them know where they come from.
That night, Mativa allowed Tudor to begin gathering genetic samples.
I'm just going to put these gloves on. I don't want my Welsh Y chromosomes getting mixed up with your Lemba Y chromosome.
It's done by swabbing the mouth and collecting cells from inside the cheeks. Each cell contains an individual's entire genetic blueprint, DNA.
And the idea is to follow the Lemba throughout their settlement in Africa and collect right along this string of settlement as we find it. And we'll see where it leads, because I think we can solve all kinds of historical problems through this kind of genetic material.
The Lemba are divided into clans. Tudor records each man's clan with his sample. Professor Mativa belongs to the Buba. They are Lemba priests.
That's great. Keep in memory of this
Ironically, it's the Lemba's traditions that make them a godsend for modern science. Men from other tribes are not allowed to convert to become Lemba. In theory, all Lemba Y chromosomes should have remained distinct over time.
No man could, in fact, ever become a Lemba, could he?
No, no man can ever become a Lemba. Only women can qualify to become a Lemba after going through a process of initiation and acceptance.
What was the process, in fact? How did a woman become a Lemba?
They would go to an ant hill and make up a hole through which this woman would go through, and then after putting up her head, the head will be shaved, the hair will be shaved, and then she will be given a name which was within the Lemba family.
But why would they want to push them through an anthill? What's the point of that?
You see, the ants themselves are a conglomerate, united group. So those symbolizes the unity of the individual. This woman is entering into a united community, and therefore, just as the ants are.
But don't the ants bite the flesh of the woman?
No, they can't. It is properly made.
Could you tell me the Senna legend? Where did the Lemba come from?
The Lemba come from Judea. They are part of the Jewish community. They are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
They then somehow went to Senna. What happened after that?
They went to Senna, where we are not very sure where that Senna is. But from there, they crossed over Pusera into Africa, where they established another Senna too, of which we are not very sure where it is actually. And then from there, they moved over along the east coast into Senna 3, where the people are still called Basena today, staying there.
We need to try and find Senna. If you were doing it, where would you look?
If you want to find the Senna people and the Senna 3 probably there, go to Zimbabwe, from Zimbabwe go to Mutare, from Mutare you cross over to Mozambique. There you'll have to find out where that place is now.
Tudor follows Mativa's directions and heads for the border into Zimbabwe, en route for Mozambique.
Well, there's a long wait. Supposedly this is the second busiest border crossing in the whole of Africa.
Sorry.
Going to Zimbabwe.
Don't take me for the police.
Now, I don't know if we have to go to the clearing agent's building or what.
Where in fact is the customs? Where do I have to go?
Not simplicity itself. What do you need from me?
Only my key. Oh, it's not.
Not quite sure what happens here. Okay, so I go across there, right? Great, okay, thanks very much. Now what do I have to do? Do I need a visa? Excuse me, please. Very well, thank you.
This one.
Is that all it is?
Yeah, it's all right.
Can we go?
Yeah.
Are we free?
Yeah.
Fantastic, thanks a lot. 4 hours it took to get through the very complicated controls. Passport control. I don't know what other control. The vehicle was a problem. Various bits of equipment were a problem. The DNA stuff was a problem. All the tubes were looked at. It was really a nightmare. We're now going north from South Africa, and we're trying to get to the heartlands of the Lemba. I think we're going to have great problems getting there, and I think when we get there we're going to get problems because of the nature of the traditional leadership. We have to get permission to do this DNA testing, and that will certainly go through a number of very complex channels, and I simply hope that works out well.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
I'm looking for a place called Chigato.
Chigato?
Chigato.
I know Chigato. Whom do you want to say Chigato?
I'm looking for somebody called Mr. Amandishi.
Amandishi is my brother.
Is your brother?
Yes, sir.
So you're a Lemba?
I'm a Lemba.
Excellent. Will you take me there?
Yes, sir.
You'll take me to your brother?
Yes, he's my brother.
Come in. Oh, well, this is really very, very nice.
Sure, sure.
How is your brother?
My brother is all right.
Ah, that's good. It's a pity about this weather, isn't it?
It's a good weather.
It's a good weather?
Yes, it's a good weather. Here in Zimbabwe, we are very happy because if we do circumcision, you know, they don't feel pain, much pain. And the blood also quickly clot.
Oh, when it's cold and wet, it's better for the clotting of the blood?
Yes. And we do circumcision age from 8, 15, up to 25. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye. Okay.
The hitchhiker's brother is Sevias. He's a powerful man in a Lemba village.
We want to be taking some samples for my genetic research, and so I will need your permission to do this.
Genetic sampling is a sensitive business, especially when it involves tribal identity. So it's vital that Tudor gets Sevias on his side.
He's saying the permission comes from the chief. If
Yes.
at all you want to do any research,
Yes.
it is the chief who has to give the permission.
We will have to go and see the chief this evening, I think.
Without consent from the right authority, he can't take any more samples.
I'm sure there'll be no problem with the chief. Do you think?
He says he doesn't know really, but he believes things will go well.
Well,
you talk to him.
Let's hope so.
The sampling involves only the men in the village. The girls, of course, don't have any Y chromosomes.
You need ethical consent, and I think the best way to get ethical consent in this kind of circumstance is to go to the person who's responsible for the moral welfare of the tribe, and that's the chief. He's the only person who can help.
What we really wanted to know was the permission to do the DNA work. This is what I was telling you about, this research. This is the permission to do the scientific work.
Oh, the scientific work.
Yes, yes. Looking at the genetic structure of the Lemba. Now, do you think there'll be any problem? Well, the chief isn't well. He's not here. This is the chief's brother.
That's right.
But he has the authority to give us this information, to give us this permission.
Yeah, he says.
So will he say yes?
No, he himself can't say yes, but the other old man that he's going to collect,
Yes.
he will bring tomorrow.
He'll bring him
the
tomorrow.
very person who will say yes.
And he, I mean,
himself and himself.
What is the relationship of this old man to the chief?
They are brothers.
It's your brother, your old brother.
They are brothers.
What's your function as chief? You have to take messengers from the chief to the other Lemba people, is that right?
He says when someone has committed a crime or has got a case, he's the one who goes there and then brings them to the chief so that he tries the case.
I understand, yes. I
Yes.
understand, yes, of course. That's right,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we'll see this. We'll see this man tomorrow, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah?
Well, the chief wasn't there. He's very ill, the old chief is, and the person that was there is the chief's messenger, who was not absolutely sober, possibly, but he does assure us that the chief will turn up tomorrow, if not the chief, the chief's representative, the chief's brother. So, in order to get the permission, we'll have to wait, in fact, until tomorrow morning. So that was a slightly abortive trip.
Tudor finally got permission to begin sampling the following morning. It was an important day. There would be a circumcision ceremony and a feast to honor the ancestors. But who are the Lemba's ancestors? Jewish custom requires that circumcision takes place before a child is 8 days old. These youths are aged between 7 and 15 years old, and that's an African tradition of circumcision. Could they really be descendants of Abraham?
Everything here is completely African. After all, these people have been here for hundreds of years, and they've only got the slightest memory of where they came from and what they were before they became Africans. There are certain things which are reminiscent of a Jewish past, if you like. The circumcision, of course, the slaughtering of animals. We saw this morning the slaughter of a sheep, the blowing of something which resembles a shofar, and they could indeed suggest a Jewish past.
These ambiguities highlight the importance of getting genetic samples. Anthropology alone cannot solve the mystery.
The place of your birth? And your cultural identity? Lemba. Ah, yes, that's something I forgot to put down on the others. So your clan is Sadiki.
To a linguist like Tudor, there was something curious about these clan names, Hadiki, Salamani. They sounded Arabic, not African. It had to be a clue to the origins of the Lemba and their lost city of Senna. By now, Tudor had collected more than 100 samples, with all the clans well represented. It was time to get the Lemba DNA safely back to London. In the lab, the geneticists will start the long process of combing through the thousands of genetic sequences that make up each Lemba's Y chromosome, hoping to find that unique pattern that may prove or disprove the Lemba's claims. Between the Lemba villages and the Mozambique border stands the remains of a great stone city. It's called Great Zimbabwe. It's the largest pre-colonial building south of the Sahara. The Lemba have always told Tudor that their ancestors helped build it when they came here as skilled craftsmen long ago. But when it was first discovered by European explorers, the stone walls were linked with Bible history and were thought to be close to the fabled gold mines of King Solomon. It became a place of myth and fantasy. And the promise of Solomon's gold brought many to seek their fortune. The first of these was a German, Karl Mauch.
When Karl Mauch got here, he'd been traveling for several years in unknown parts of Africa. And he arrived here, he must have been absolutely astonished. That evening, the first evening of his arrival, he sat down in his tent and he wrote, "I've discovered certainly the Temple of Solomon and the Palace of the Queen of Sheba." He'd been told that day, in fact, by some local tribesmen that the great enclosure was in fact the temple of the Great Woman, and he assumed that the Great Woman was the Queen of Sheba.
Mauch couldn't have been more wrong. Archaeology has shown that Great Zimbabwe had nothing to do with the Bible. It was the center of a great medieval African kingdom, and it had trading links eastward to the African coast, to Mozambique. For Tudor, this was confirmation that he was on the right path to the lost city of Senna. But which one?
Professor Mativa has spoken of 3 Sennas, 2 in Africa, 1 somewhere in the Middle East perhaps. Others have spoken of several Sennas, one of which may or may not be on the Indian Ocean coast round about Mozambique. So the task will be to unravel these conflicting Senna legends and try and find where the real Senna is.
In the 16th century, Portuguese explorers recorded the existence of a city somewhere on the Zambezi. They said its name was Senna. Today, it is in war-ravaged Mozambique. Tudor travels east towards the coast, then north towards the Zambezi. Was Senna still there? And would it be the Lemba's lost city?
Is this Senna? The centro is here. The center is here. The center?
Yeah, it's here.
It's here?
Yeah.
Ah, great.
Well, it does look actually as if it's seen rather better days. It looks like a total dump. I see no trace of anything older than the 20th century, and even that has been practically destroyed. It's really strange. The Lemba in South Africa refer to Senna in the same breath as they might refer to heaven or paradise. And I think if they were to see it, they'd be very, very disappointed. This is complete desolation, not at all how it's imagined in their imagined Senna.
On the Mozambique coast, the Lemba Trail had gone cold. There was nothing to show that this might once have been the lost city of the Lemba. And of the other Sennas Mativa had described, there was no sign. But the Lemba claimed they came by boat. Tudor had a hunch. There was only one way they could have come, and only one place they could have come from. The port of Al-Mukalla on the south coast of the Yemen. 5 centuries ago, Al-Mukalla was the gateway for a great Arab trading empire. From here, Arab ships set sail across the Indian Ocean. Monsoon winds made their destination inevitable, the African coast. Present-day Mozambique was the very edge of their world. Tudor believes that these ancient trade routes could solve one part of the Lemba mystery, the location of Senna.
One part of the year there are winds that whiz you right down the African coast, and then for the rest of the year there are winds that whiz you back. So it really was a kind of superhighway, this piece of water. I feel that the Senna of the Lemba must lie somewhere in the hinterland of this Arabian coast. It's the empty quarter behind here, and right through the empty quarter there lies a valley called the Wadi Hadramut, and at one end of the Hadramut there's a city called Sayoun, which sounds a bit like Senna, and one of the forms of Senna is perhaps Sayoun anyway, and I think we'll start in Sayoun.
Sayoun lies in a remote desert called the Hadramut. It's mentioned in the Bible, and its name means the courts of death. To look for a lost tribe of Israel in a devout Muslim country might seem illogical, even dangerous. But there have been Jewish communities in Arabia for more than 2,000 years. Could Sayoun be Senna? And could these people be the Lemba's distant cousins? There was only one place to find out. The Islamic library occupies an old sultan's palace. It has a staff of 1. But Muhammad al-Sakaf has an encyclopedic knowledge of the Hadramut region and its people.
هناك قبيلة في أفريقيا في زيمبابوي اسمهم لمبا ورمبا ويظن أن أصولهم من سنة. أنا ما بعرف وين سنة. يمكن هذا سيون سنة.
سيئون غير سنة. سنة توجد على بعد 3 ساعات باتجاه الشرق من سيئون، قريبا من نبي الله هود عليه السلام. هناك توجد سنة وتراها في الخريطة. هنا توجد سيئون. هنا يتجه الوادي باتجاه الشرق، وادي حضرموت يتجه باتجاه الشرق، وعلى بعد 3 ساعات من مدينة سيئون توجد منطقة سنة.
هذا سنة.
هذه منطقة بدوية خالية ومواقع أثرية.
القبيلة تقسم إلى بطون، مثلا صديقي، حميسي، مهدي، سليماني.
نعم، هذه أسماء مشابهة لأسماء موجودة في حضرموت. هنا يوجد با صديق وبا خميس. هذا اسم عائلة شامل أو بطون للقبائل. با خميس، سليماني، با سليمان أو بن سلمان، با صديق. هذه أسماء مشهورة هنا في وادي حضرموت.
في زيمبابوي سليمان سليماني.
هذا شيء عجيب.
It was a breakthrough. The fact that all but one of the Lemba clan names was used in the Hadramut is unlikely to be coincidence. And there really was a place called Senna, although it was unmarked on most maps.
We're now going to Senna. This kind of cobbled road goes on for another little while, and then really we go into the desert, and Senna is right at the end of the wadi.
To get there would mean a journey across the desert, into the unknown. This remote part of the Yemen is not a safe place to travel. Local tribes frequently kidnap foreigners and hold them to ransom. An armed escort is vital. This is the last place marked on maps of the Hadramut. It's called Kabar Hud. For 3 days a year, it's a pilgrimage site in honor of a prophet called Hud. The rest of the year, it's a ghost town. Little is known about Hud, but his name turned out to be a surprising clue linking the Hadramut with ancient Israel.
It's very interesting in the car this morning, talking to the driver. He was getting rather fed up with different things, and he started criticizing the prophet Hud that we were going to visit on the grounds that he was a Jewish prophet and not nearly as important as other prophets. And it was pointed out to him that most of the prophets were Jewish in some way, but this didn't matter. He was rather against this prophet. But still, he is specifically Jewish in the sense that his name, Hud, is related to the Arabic word Yahud, which means Jew. Even at the beginning of Islam, there were Jews in Arabia. There are references in the Islamic texts of Jews living here at the time of Muhammad, and we know that subsequently there were Jews as well. In this area, there was a Jewish kingdom under the legendary king Dhul Nuwas, who fought against the Ethiopians and died driving his charger into the Red Sea. So the whole place is redolent with Jewish history and with Jewish references.
Tudor will follow a river called the Masila towards Senna. And it's perhaps significant that the Lemba talk about travelling through Pusila to the sea. At the eastern end of this valley is a great port called Sechut, another gateway to Africa.
But this is the route, if my theory is correct, that the Lemba would have taken from Senna. They followed the Masila down to Sechut, which is at the sea at the bottom of this very long, deep wadi.
The valley is usually bone dry in the summer, but torrential rain and unseasonal flash floods make progress painfully slow.
Well, we're stuck. I think we got unstuck. Perhaps we've got restuck.
Senna is not quite ready to give up its secrets.
We arrived last night very late, and we weren't able to cross because of the flood. And we've slept this night on the banks of the Masila. And Senna, of course, is on the other side here, and we're waiting to cross. I don't know when we'll be able to cross because of the flood. The people from the village of Senna say that we may have to wait all day, and if there's more rain, we won't be able to cross at all. So after such a long journey, this is really rather frustrating. But here is Senna.
The children of Senna, 3,930.
But as with the Senna on the Zambezi, there was nothing Tudor could use to show that this was the ancient home of the Lemba. No graffiti claiming the Lemba were here. The only way to prove if the Lemba had ancestral links with Senna and the Hadramut was to get DNA samples, and as quickly as possible before the rains came back. By now, Neil Bradman's geneticists had completed their work on the African samples, and they came up with a stunning result. The Lemba Y chromosomes showed a number of genetic links with Middle Eastern peoples, including Jews. But one of the Lemba clans, Professor Mativa's, the Buba priests, possessed that unique genetic signature, the Kohanim gene, inherited from the Israelite priests who served in the temple 3,000 years ago. It meant that modern science gave the Lemba a right to claim that their ancestors were among the ancient people of the Bible. The Lemba are descendants of Abraham and Moses. Their genetic trail definitely led out of Africa back to Israel. But how did the Yemen fit in?
That has no particular problem attached to it. We know perfectly well that there were some Jews, small numbers of Jews, no doubt, living in South Arabia. There was, of course, the famous conversion of Jews at the time of Dhul-Nuwas, the great Himyaritic king, but these were converts. But it seems entirely probable that they were instructed or had contact with Jews from Judea, and we have other evidence that there were some Jews here. This, according to my theory, is the place from which the Lemba originally came, and the river, undoubtedly, is the river whose course they followed. There are so many interlocking pieces of this jigsaw that work that I would say it's entirely likely.
Other pieces in the puzzle came later. Although the Senna samples were inconclusive, the samples taken elsewhere in the Hadramut revealed unique genetic markers, also present in the Lemba. So the genes showed that the drama of this lost tribe was somehow played out in the deserts of Arabia. A group of men had made their way to the coast of the Yemen and across the Indian Ocean to faraway Africa. If any group of people in the world deserve to be called a lost tribe, it's the Lemba, Africa's black Jews.
The Lemba are Jews. We are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the rest of them all. Those are our blood relatives.